and for the very first time live to my YouTube. So that's something I'm just going to be testing out. So welcome to anyone who watches this on YouTube. So a few days ago on Monday, I wrote an email out about the archetype behind the imposter syndrome. And then I've also wrote a blog article. And then I am here doing this live. It just feels like such an important topic to be talking about because we can throw this term around, the imposter syndrome, but if you actually understand the archetypes behind it and to start asking the correct questions to be triggering and activating the correct archetypal responses, it helps light a fire beneath you so that you don't get trapped always in feeling like you're an imposter. Hello, beautiful Kerry. So what is the imposter syndrome, first of all? It is a very common term that a lot of people know. And it's basically when you feel like you're not good enough, that you're an imposter. So it tends to flare its head a lot when we're trying to start something new. So we are starting a business, or we want to shift into a different field, like becoming a healer or a coach or a teacher. It can flare when you're in, say you're at a wedding and there's all these people who are doctors and all these little different stuff, and then you say, I just don't fit in here. I'm the imposter. So it flares up when we feel like we're not good enough. So some of the common questions that it starts speaking in our mind, the imposter syndrome, will be saying things like, oh, there's already so many incredible healers. And I know some of these healers, there's not enough people, or I'm not needed. There's better healers than me. And you feel like that imposter, like you don't have stuff inside of you which is just as valuable and incredible to help people with. You totally dismiss your story. You totally dismiss your history, everything that you've been through, your own healing journey, and think, there's already these other healers. Same with coaches or writing a book. Maybe you want to write a self-help book on grieving, and there is already 1,500 books on grieving. Who's going to read yours? There's all these other ones that's already out there. But if that is what the divine and your higher self and your guides are telling you to do, and you keep getting this repetitive message to do it, then it doesn't matter what is already out there. There is going to be people that need to hear your story. There might be something unique in the way that you write about grief, which is going to help people. And it's quite fascinating as I'm taking my clients through my archetypal empowerment course. And what happens is it's always the things that we do effortlessly and easy that are tied up in our soul purpose and are tied up in our superpowers, the things that make us who we are. So quite often we're feeling like this imposter, but we have all these aspects which we do so easy that we don't pause and go, oh, other people can't do that as easy? Oh, okay. So you sometimes need to be reminded or shown, or actually just really look at this. I've done other videos about like owning your power. It's not about being arrogant. It's not about tooting your own horn and the tall poppy syndrome. It's about just going, this is who I am and this is what I can do, and really owning that. And it's actually part of the witch wound that makes us want to cut people down with that tall poppy syndrome. You're growing too big. You're doing such and such. So let's pause for a second and bring in the witch wound. So there is a huge reason, a psychic wound, what happened during the witch burnings, where we are afraid to stand up, be seen, be heard, and be known. So the imposter syndrome can flare up from that as well. Because, if I dare to step up and be that healer, or if I dare to step up and be that teacher, if I write that book, paint that painting, start my own online business, then I'm going to have to face being seen. So the archetype behind the imposter syndrome, it is not in the saboteur, which a lot of people think, oh, it's a sabotaging pattern. It's actually in the prostitute archetype. So it is where we don't feel worthy. But it's also where we will prostitute ourselves because we don't feel like we are the person to do it. So let's take that story where I was talking about a healer stepping up, or the person who needs to write the grief book. They have had the message for quite a while. You need to write this book. It keeps coming back into their mind, and they're ignoring the divine messages and the intuition and the guidance coming down because they don't feel good enough. There's all these other people that can do it so much better than you. There's already 1,500 books on grief. There's already 1,000 healers who are all doing light language, or all doing Reiki, or all doing sound baths. So what happens is you're prostituting your soul by ignoring your divine message, by ignoring your purpose, because you don't feel good enough. So to get out of feeling like an imposter, the only way to do that is the lover, which is the higher aspect of the prostitute. You need to love yourself enough to put yourself first. You need to love yourself enough to go, you know what? I don't know if anyone is ever going to is ever going to read this book on grief. But I'm going to follow my intuition. I'm going to write this book for me, because this is what is reoccurring and being said to me over and over and over, to write this book. So you write the book for you, because that's your divine guidance. See how you're flipping the energy into the lover and not into, I'm not good enough, there's already 1,000 and people doing this, it's 1,500 books on that. But then another thing that you can do is to really ask questions of yourself that'll light a fire beneath the prostitute. So the prostitute, if you say things like, what if I can help just one person with what I'm doing? Will it be worthy enough? Is helping one person good enough? Hello, beautiful Zeet. You can ask another question like, do I want to go to my deathbed in 70 years and I'm going to be 103 and am I going to lay there and have all these regrets? Do I want to pay that much rent? I was only 21 when I lost my dad to cancer, and I really saw the weight of regret. So you never want to pay that rent. You never want to pay that when you're on your deathbed and have all these regrets. And that's a very incredibly powerful motivator. Think like that with your incredible prostitute and your incredible lover, and put your imposter syndrome to one side and make your purpose more important. The thing is, there is no magic wand that's going to wave over you and go, oh, I suddenly don't feel like an imposter anymore. What you do is you face all of the fears and all of the doubts and all the things where you don't feel like you're good enough, that you feel like you can't do this, you're too old, there's too many people doing this, you can't learn a new thing, you don't want to go back to uni and study, all of the stories. But you know when you have a reoccurring thought to do something that, and sometimes you just know when it's a soul message. It's got that feeling and that weight to it. It's like, this is an important thought. This is not just a whimsical creative idea. This is my higher self and spirit talking to me. They want me to do this. Are you willing to ignore it? So following and having the courage and the incredible warrior archetype to face the fears. You know, one of my catchphrases with the alchemist and the saboteur is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have the imposter syndrome flaring up. You know that you're supposed to write this book. So you say to yourself, I'm going to do it. And you need the warrior and the alchemist, because you will be uncomfortable. You will face procrastination, perfectionism, your imposter syndrome. You will face different frictions and problems that flare its head, and you need to alchemize each time. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because what happens is when you actually do the thing that Spirit's been telling you to and that you feel the imposter from, all of a sudden when you're doing it, you're like, this feels normal. This feels right. I don't know what I was worried about. Many times Spirit magnetizes the people. How many times have you heard like people write a book and then they have a freakishly incredible encounter with an agent, or they somehow get published? There's thousands of those stories. There's all of these incredible stories where you do the thing that you feel like you're being an imposter over. And then the universe shows the way. And the next step is divinely led to you. So if you put your soul esteems, which is your purpose, at the forefront, where you concentrate and put your energy into being the artist, being the teacher, being the entrepreneur, being the healer, being the priestess, being the mystic or the crone or the priest. If you put being of service at the forefront, and the part that is more important than this little tiny part of your brain that's freaking out going, oh my God, there's all these other authors, there's all these other healers, there's all these other teachers, there's so many other people that are better than me. You know, a common thing that you'll find with the imposter syndrome is what I call the certificate collecting. And I don't know how many, I've done this myself, by the way, but a lot of, like nearly every single one of my clients I've ever worked with was a certificate collector. So they didn't feel like they were good enough, so they'd go and do another course and get certified in another modality, and or study another thing. You know, like I have a really strong student archetype. I'm always going to be learning. I'm always going to have some kind of course that I'm doing. But I do that because I love it. I don't do it because I don't feel like I'm good enough yet. So do you see how the difference between the student being in its light aspects and then the imposter syndrome coming in going, you need to do this masterclass and this 3-year course on being an Akashic reader, and you got to do Reiki, and you got to do such and such. Like, I did all of those things. And that is one of my ways of how I journeyed through the imposter syndrome. I flat out had people telling me that when I first started my spiritual journey in 2012, I had a massive activation. And the very first healer I ever went, she goes, do you know, the universe sends me healers who are being activated. And I laughed and rejected her. I've just like, I wouldn't even know how to start healing anybody. It's not my desire. I just want to release all these sabotaging patterns. Like I was really into, you know, before I even knew archetypes and I'd studied archetypes, I legit was obsessed with breaking my patterns. And my alchemist archetype really activated so strongly at that time, and I did not give up. You know, if I was martyring, if I had inner critic, before I even had the words to label the archetypes and the programs that I had, I knew that it was not beneficial to me, and I would systematically boom, 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 work on it until I healed it. You know, it took me 18 months to unprogram my religion, shame about religion. And I had to really work on that. And by healing that, I can actually, you know, I had all these issues with Jesus. Poor Jesus copped so much from me. And I had all these parts of myself which you know, I felt like there was a distance between me and God. And that, you know, now I say to people, religion is like the middleman. And if you do this work, you can skip the middleman and go directly to the high source, to God, to the big cheese, to God, Goddess. And I now have this wonderfully intimate relationship with the divine, that I don't have somebody telling me how to interpret his words or how to feel close to her, you know, and that's because I did the work. Some of these programs and these patterns take time because they're embedded deep. And I have friends who have been able to move through it in a couple of months. It took me 18 months. There's nothing wrong with me because it took longer. It's just I needed that time. So if you need to work with your imposter syndrome, it is not going to happen like that. But if you stick with it and you follow your purpose, you love yourself enough with the love archetype to go, I don't want to feel like a fake. I don't want to feel like this anymore. So another aspect that comes up is the orphan child. So when it comes to diagnosing and helping my clients work out what their child archetype is, and for any new viewers, what I'm talking about, the child archetype, is with my course that I do is intrinsically based on Caroline Mace's survival archetypes, Jim Curtin's 4 soul esteems, or I call them soul esteems, he didn't give them a name, and Robert O'Hotto brought some stuff in, and then I have my own stuff. So Caroline Mace talks about the child archetypes, and there is one called the orphan, and they have such a fear of rejection and abandonment that they have quite often an horrifying imposter syndrome, because they're so worried about being rejected. And then if they're rejected, they're then abandoned, people are going to leave them, that there can quite often be more work that needs to be done with the imposter syndrome for people who have the orphan archetype, the orphan child. So the key to this all is dedicated action. Love yourself enough with the lover archetype to face every one of the fears, every story that your brain comes up with. You focus on being of service. You focus on creating the piece of art that's going to soothe someone's soul. You focus on writing the book that's going to bring comfort and healing to somebody. You focus on being the greatest healer that you can be, and how can you serve people next. You focus on being the best teacher or coach or guide that you can. When I started this work, the biggest time it flared up for me wasn't actually with the coaching. It was with getting on lives like this and speaking and not being foolish. And there's so many people that are already on Facebook doing all of these different things. So my biggest hang up was actually not looking like a big twit, and what will people think of me, all my friends and family, and I had to get over that. Anybody I know on this planet can Google my name and find my YouTube channel and find my website. My website is jessbeard.online. And also jessbeard.com. I've got both. So I have nowhere to hide anymore. I had to face that. You can't get more public. So my imposter syndrome was flared its head with this, like, well, what if people Google and then they, there's all these other people that are doing, there's all these other archetypal teachers. There's Caroline, there's Robert, Clarissa. There's just so many people working with archetypes. But I had to get over that in order, and I did that by the reassurance that I knew through my own healing journey, and I had countless people of my friends and stuff that I'd helped beforehand going, you need to do this for your life purpose. You need to charge money for this. You need to show people how to do this. And I had that reoccurring message over and over by other people, like, it's time to do this. So that gave me the reassurance, okay, I'm going to have to face all of my fears and doubts and just do the thing. So I started out with readings with the cards. Oh, look, it's the creator. I keep getting that card. And, I started out with that to start off with, but I quickly wanted to help people more. So because my drive to help people was so strong, I didn't have as much issues with the imposter, with becoming a coach and a guide and helping people to understand their archetypal patterns. So I can guarantee and say this, if you focus more on being helpful and being of service, you can face that imposter so much easier. The hardest part with me was, what would my friends and family think with me wanting to do this thing? And they know the old me. And here I am wanting to step up and do this new thing. And I did a Facebook detox, I called it. And after one of my former work colleagues, who was just a cute, funny girl, she's very young and a little bit immature, she made a sarcastic comment. And I thought to myself, okay, so I have a fear. This just happened. What am I going to do about it? So I went through and I unfriended every single work colleague I've ever worked with, except for 2 who are really, really good friends. And I knew that they wouldn't judge me. Then I went through and I went, is there any of my family who I think is going to get massively triggered by this or anything else like that? So there was a couple I unfriended of my extended family. And then the other ones, I just went, if my family loves me enough to just love me for who I am, I'm going to leave them in there, come out of the spiritual closet and start being who I am. And if they say anything, they're going to be unfollowed and unfriended faster than the speed of light, because I don't need that in my life. And I would do that, because I need that energetical boundaries in place for me to feel comfortable. So don't hesitate to do things that will support you as you go through the healing process with the imposter. If you need to distance yourself from people, if you need to unfriend them, if you need to completely swap friendship groups or anything else like that, then you do so. So I hope this has been an incredibly helpful discussion, in that you understand how archetypes can help you in this instance. There are so many people out there going, oh, I feel like an imposter, and I feel like they throw this term around. I've seen a lot of coaches in business coaches and stuff doing it. But if you actually understand the archetypes, that's the cause, and also the archetypes that can help you, it's a roadmap out of it. And that's the power of archetypes. So I'm in the midst of revamping my website and putting all my services and my courses up on there. So if you are feeling drawn to the archetypes and you want to know more about how they can help you, I would be more than happy to have a divine conversation with you. To me, archetypes are the blueprint to emotional freedom and personal empowerment as you activate and really work with your sovereign. And the incredible relief my clients get when they work through the child and victim is some of the most profound stuff I've ever seen in my life. So your child is, how do you react when you get hurt, offended, expectations, your fundamental needs? There's all these things that we just react to, like a gut reaction. We are the ones that get offended. We're the ones that get hurt. And we, through the archetypes, have the power to stop that in its tracks. You know exactly what you're doing. You know what your triggers are. You know what to do when they happen. And you don't activate the victim and be in the victim. So the saboteur and the prostitute modules are always profound, but my clients have their greatest transformation in the child and victim modules because they stop giving away their power. So I have tons. I've been very busy this last 12 months, and I have got the Heal Your People Pleaser course, which is 27. There's Protect Your Empath online course, which is 97. And there is my large curriculum, which is all of my work as a self-study option, which is 997. There's also working with me one-on-one. So I have the different packages. I have a 3-month and a 6-month coaching options. So if you're curious, or if you want to have emotional freedom, or if you want to stop feeling like you're giving your power away and that archetypes will help you, I would love to hear from you. I have put in the discussion below, the write-up, the link to my $27 course, Heal Your People Pleaser. I feel like it's a really good starting point for a lot of people to see if they're going to enjoy working with archetypes. And some of the people have the most profound shifts. I had one of the beautiful ladies, she messaged me and she goes, I did the journal exercise and I have 63 people that I people please to, that I shapeshift to. And her entire life has really cataclysmically changed for just the empowerment in her workplace, and just seeing how much she people pleased and pausing it and going, do I really want to do this? So there's many different ways that I can help people. And my greatest desire is for people to truly understand archetypes and how they can change your life. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you feel like you have a really large people pleaser, imposter syndrome, then I really want you to work upon it. I do not want you to pay the horrific rent of laying on your deathbed and having all these regrets because you made up all these stories of why you couldn't do something when Spirit was telling you to do them. You know? And there is how many billion people? There is going to be people who are your tribe that need to hear your words, see your paintings, hear your teachings, listen to your podcast. And don't deny them the pleasure and the power of your work because you don't feel like you're good enough. Because I can tell you right now, you are good enough. You just need to do some healing beforehand and activate that warrior and alchemist and work through it. So I hope this has brought you lots of juicy stuff to think about. If you need any help at any time, my new website is easy as, it's jessbeard.online, and I really look forward to hearing your thoughts or working with you in the future. Bye for now.